A day's lodging. Automatically, her first act had been to set the coffee pot back. It was not until she had done this that she glanced at Messner, but already he had composed himself. She saw only a man sitting on the edge of the bunk and incuriously studying the toes of his moccasins. But as she turned casually to go about her cooking, he shot another swift look at her, and she, glancing as swiftly back, caught his look. He shifted on past her to the doctor, though the slightest smile curled his lip in appreciation of the way she had trapped him. She drew a candle from the grub box and lighted it. One look at her illuminated face was enough for Messner. In the small cabin, the widest limit was only a matter of several steps, and the next moment she was alongside of him. She deliberately held the candle close to his face and stared at him out of eyes wide with fear and recognition. He smiled quietly back at her. "What are you looking for, Tess?" the doctor called. "Hairpins," she replied, passing on and rummaging in a clothes bag on the bunk. They served their meal on their grub box, sitting on Messner's grub box and facing him. He had stretched out on his bunk to rest, lying on his side, his head on his arm. In the close quarters, it was as though the three were together at table. "What part of the States do you come from?" Messner asked. "San Francisco," answered the doctor. "I've been in here 2 years, though." "I hail from California myself," was Messner's announcement. The woman looked at him appealingly, but he smiled and went on. "Berkeley, you know." The other man was becoming interested. "You see?" he asked. "Yes, class of '86. "I meant faculty," the doctor explained. "You remind me of the type." "Sorry to hear you say so," Messner smiled back. "I'd prefer being taken for a prospector or a dog musher." "I don't think he looks any more like a professor than you do a doctor," the woman broke in. "Thank you," said Messner. Then, turning to her companion, "By the way, doctor, what is your name, if I may ask?" "Haythorne, if you'll take my word for it. I gave up cards with civilization." "And Mrs. Haythorne." Messner smiled and bowed. She flashed a look at him that was more anger than appeal. Haythorne was about to ask the other's name. His mouth had opened to form the question when Messner cut him off. "Come to think of it, doctor, you may possibly be able to satisfy my curiosity. There was a sort of scandal in faculty circles some 2 or 3 years ago. The wife of one of the English professors, if you will pardon me, Mrs. Haythorne, disappeared with some San Francisco doctor, I understood, though his name does not just now come to my lips. Do you remember the incident?" Haythorne nodded his head. "Made quite a stir at the time. His name was Womble. Graham Womble. He had a magnificent practice. I knew him somewhat. Well, what I was trying to get at was what had become of them. I was wondering if you had heard. They left no trace, hide nor hair." He covered his tracks cunningly. Haythorne cleared his throat. "There was rumor that they went to the South Seas, were lost on a trading schooner in a typhoon, or something like that." "I never heard that," Messner said. "You remember the case, Mrs. Haythorne?" "Perfectly," she answered, in a voice the control of which was in amazing contrast to the anger that blazed in the face she turned aside so that Haythorne might not see. The latter was again on the verge of asking his name, when Messner remarked, "This Dr. Womble, I've heard he was very handsome, and, quite a success, so to say, with the ladies." "Well, if he was, he finished himself off by that affair," Haythorne grumbled.